There are other types of lipids as well. Phospholipids are a type of lipid that we find in all cell membranes. And here's a picture of a phospholipid. You can see that the phospholipid is in some ways really similar to a triglyceride. However, instead of having three fatty acid chains, it only has two. It still has a glycerol, but then at the top, in what we call the phospholipid head, we have a phosphate group. And this is going to be important later. But for now, I just want you to understand the general structure of a phospholipid. So a phospholipid has two components, the hydrophilic head, and hydro means water, philic means loving, so water loving heads. In fact, the head of a phospholipid can easily bond with water. And we also have the hydrophobic tails. Hydro means water, phobic means fearing, so water fearing tails. These tails do not like water and they don't want to be next to the water. If we looked at a cell membrane, we would find that all of these different phospholipids will always form this this bilayer structure. This is what phospholipids do when they are placed in water. They will automatically do this on their own. They will start to face each other so that the hydrophilic heads can touch the water on the outside of the cell and the inside of the cell, while the hydrophobic tails can face each other so that they only interact with other hydrophobic tails. The hydrophobic tails are nonpolar and they want to be by other nonpolar components. The hydrophilic heads are polar and therefore they like to be next to the polar water molecules. There are also another category of lipids called steroids, like cholesterol and some hormones, which are molecules that work like chemical messengers in our body. There's also cholesterol. Cholesterol is found in animal cell membranes. It's also used to make the sex hormones, but cholesterol is important for keeping cell membranes fluid and it helps them move around a little bit better, which we'll learn about more in chapter 5. So, here's an example of a steroid. There's also maybe a different type of steroid you've heard about if you've ever seen a guy or a lady who looks really, really jacked, and you're like, how did they get so big and buff like this guy? Well, they might be taking something called anabolic steroids. So, anabolic steroids sometimes are prescribed by doctors for people that have certain diseases because it helps with muscle growth, but there's a lot of side effects of these medicines as well. So, if you do not have a degenerative muscular disease, then I wouldn't recommend taking anabolic steroids. You might get jacked, but you might also end up having some severe mental problems and acne and growing hair all over your body in weird places. So don't do anabolic steroids. It's not worth it. These are synthetic, and it's basically a man made version of testosterone. But this is the kind of thing you might hear about athletes. They get caught using steroids or something like that. And in many sports leagues around the world, like FIFA, that controls football around the world, FIFA does not let their athletes use steroids, or most sports don't let their athletes use any type of steroids because they're illegal and they're dangerous, even though they do give you giant muscles. All right. And the next category we're going to look at is proteins. I'm going to tell you a hint for biology class. If you are looking at a question on a test and you don't know the answer, choose proteins. Okay, most of the time the answer is proteins. This is a hint. I promise you, if you use this hint, you will get some questions correct on some tests. When in doubt, choose proteins because proteins do almost everything in your body. And I'm going to say that again. During class, I'm going to ask you, what do proteins do in your body? And you're going to answer almost everything. Okay, so let's try it right now. So, in your body, what do proteins do? Very good. Almost everything. What are some of the things that proteins do? Well, they can function as enzymes, they can help to transport different things in and out of your cells, they can work defensively to protect your body. They can make antibodies, they can help your immune system, they can give signals, and they can work as hormones, they can act as receptors to receive signals, they can help your muscles move, they can act structurally, they can even act as storage, and most importantly,